let's get it started. So this is going to be the third photo in our series. We've already done this photo here and this photo here. So this is going to be the third photo that we do. We're going to start this off because I know I've been using some duplicates of it, but I want the originals. And because I found out that Capture One, when you create a new variant, it clears all of our color and star tags. I'm going to make sure it doesn't disappear on us. So I'm going to go ahead and create, a clone variant that I am then going to reset. So now I'm back to the original image that we started with, so I can apply the effects to it that I need to. And then this is the one that we're going to continue editing. Punch over here so that the camera is out of the way. Have some coffee because it is early. Well, not super early, it's 10 o'clock, but you know, it's early for me on a weekend. But I'm doing this all for you guys, well, and for myself. I have to get some photography practice in. All right, so let's get it. All right, so I know we've already started. We've applied a base level adjustment, and then we've applied an adjustment to our reds, which we are going to tone that down a little bit. Let a little bit more of that skin color come through. One thing we are going to apply from the previous images for this wall, and since we already have it done here on the pillar, we're going to, can I just drag it? Just drag it over. Thought that worked. No? Alright, so we'll just copy and apply. And then we can just remove these three adjustments because we don't need them. Because they're just duplicates of what we already have. All I want is this pillar adjustment. And we are going to go and clear that mask and create a new mask for it to fix the color of this pillar here. So let's go ahead and M so we can see. And we're just create a nice outline. We are going to avoid her arms as much as possible, and I may have to zoom in to clean this area up because the color of the wall may actually affect her skin a little bit, and we definitely don't want that. So come down here. Oops. Come up here. And then we will fill the mask. Look at that. Alright, without the mask, let's see how we're looking. Yeah, I'm running into some issues right there. Let's zoom in a little bit. Get our handy dandy eraser tool. And just remove this effect from her skin. Because what we're really doing is adjusting the yellow in the brick, and because there's yellow in your skin, it's kind of getting rid of it. And then let's see, do I want it down here? Do I want to keep this? Let me see, let's mask visibility cursor. can't remember if there's a way to... duplicate this. I guess not. I mean... because I don't think I want it as intense. I think I do want it on this. I just don't want it as intense as it actually is. But in order to do that, I may have to create pillar bottom and actually what we can do is just reapply and we'll call this pillar bottom. Then we can clear that mask. And then we can paint it down here. And we'll go in and erase that from her arm where I know it's hitting. So we'll zoom in. Handy dandy eraser tool. Didn't hit our arm as bad as I thought it did. Which is a good thing. Okay, so now we can tone that down and we're just cleaning up the base of that pillar that she's leaning up against. So all right, I think this is a good starting point, and then we'll come here to the original image and do our highlight adjustments. We pull the highlights all the way down, shadows all the way up. We pull the blacks down a bit, pull the whites up a bit, and add clarity. And what this should allow us to do is get a little bit more detail back in the image. Any detail that may be lost, some additional detail. So let's go ahead and export that to Photoshop. Make sure it's going to the right place. And then we'll just close Capture One just to free up some memory resources. We'll close the Nik panel and we are done with Capture One for today. One of these days I'll do a full thing on Capture One where we do an entire image, or as much of an entire image as we can get. Can I not copy this? Copy, paste, there we go. And then we can close that down. All right, so let's go ahead and duplicate you, group you together. The top will throw over to soft light, and then both down to 0%. And just slowly bring them up. All right, about that looks good. I think about right there looks good. And then that's a little too strong entirely now. So we'll take this down a bit too. All right. Just a little bit of pop, adding some more of the details back in that may have gotten removed. So we'll go ahead and create a flat document there. Go ahead and save, just so we get our save started, because always be saving. You always want to save. The worst thing you could do is do all this work and then forget to save your work. Alright, so we're going to start with the background cleanup. And we're going to start that here. And just like in the previous images, we're just doing this to clean up the brick. Because the one thing we don't want is distracting elements. And right now, this messy brick is definitely a distracting element. And we're going to go ahead and clean this area up over here. And we'll use our clone brush here, our clone healing, in just a second to blend some of this together. I'm just trying to get rid of any harsh contrast colors that could interfere with that process. Clean up the brick a little bit more. Okay. Let's lower this down to about 50%. All right, so now let's go into, that's our spot healing. I want our healing brush. And so now we're just gonna blend these together. Now the good news is the background is very bokeh. So oop, got distracted. So I don't have to be super detailed, because from a distance you'll never know anything was changed here. So we're just gonna clean this area up. We may be getting some weird issues over there, so we'll use our clone stamp to clean up, which is why I lowered it to about 50%, just to blend it a little bit more with the surrounding area. Usually the clone stamp I use almost at max hardness, so that elements don't get blurred. But in this instance, it's okay because we are wanting to blend it a little bit with the surrounding area. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. And we may actually make all that green, which, let's go and do that now. It's just a huge bright spot next to her head. And doesn't look good. So what we can do, again, because the background is super out of focus, let's get our healing brush. Let's get rid of some of these hairs so that we can pull color from this area. My Alexa turned on. Alright, so now we come in here and we just pull some of this tree coloring down into this area here. What we don't want is repeating patterns, so I'm pulling from different areas of the tree to help kind of blend it together a little bit. Now we are going to remove that light glare. I did not mean to pull that in there, because I don't want any bright elements next to her head. And then we will come in here a little bit more and blend it with the healing brush tool. And this is just helping to clean up the image. To take the eye exactly where we want it to go. So in this case, we don't want anything to distract to her head. So when you're looking at her head, the last thing I want is for your eye to change and move to the bright spot that was here. Doing something funky now. Okay. It is on current and below, right? Yeah. We'll just be a little bit more careful. Now, I do this on just about on a lot of my images. I like to remove distracting elements. It's probably also why it takes me about 2 hours to edit photos, because I do this kind of step. I don't like distracting elements, and in this case there's just nothing I could do about it. You know what, let's see if this works too. We'll just take a chunk of the background. Oops. Try this again. Take a chunk of the background. And just blend that. Just give us a little bit more melding of color. And then that dark spot right there is just a little distracting. So we'll pull. Let's do it at this color. Alright, that was just a little bit too distracting for me. Alright, so we filled in that area there, and it's still looking a little weird, and I think it's because of that hair right there, so we will just clone it over right there. And we'll use this to shape her head a little bit, and then we'll blend the outer edge into the background using the healing brush. Just like so. And most people aren't ever going to be this zoomed into the image. So we'll fix those hairs in a separate step. Alright, so let's continue on to our background edits. We're going to come up here. And let's make this a little bit harder now. About 78. Sounds good. And we're just going to finish cleaning up the brick. Taking care to make sure that there's no weird lines. Or crooked lines. Because the last thing you want is for there to be something noticeable that someone goes, oh, look, you cloned that. We're trying to keep things as realistic as possible. And luckily, this stuff being out of focus is making our job a lot easier right now. Which is why if the background doesn't matter, I like to bokeh it out. It makes editing so much easier. Now obviously there was nothing I could do about this post in real time because it's brick. And these are, you know, just age marks. It's been there a very long time. So but with Photoshop, we can clean it all up, make it look prettier. Or in this case, less distracting. Get rid of bright points because bright points will always detract your eye. And then we have one small part right here. Now I am using a Wacom tablet, so my brush size is adjusting based on my pen pressure. If you don't have a Wacom tablet or a way to use pressure, you need to make sure that you're adjusting your brush size to get into the areas that you need to get into. Okay. I think we're looking pretty good. All right. We can do some other like cleanup. All right, I want to see something. Oops, that's not this. Shape dynamics. All right. So quick before and after. So before and after. So see how by cleaning the brick up it's less distracting and getting rid of that white, that bright white spot by her head. You're actually able, it's not pulling your eye here. All right, so now we're also going to come down here and clean up some of these marks. We're not going to clean up as much of these because they're dark and they're not as distracting, but we still want to clean them up. Now for something like this, it may take, let's just see how long it takes with the spot with the clone stamp. And then if we need to, we may move over into the patch tool. But we'll see. Usually this works, especially on blurred out areas, because we're literally taking information from over here and replacing it, which helps preserve the texture of the object. And because, you know, the object is a pillar, there's no visual reference for your eye to go, oh, that's fake. So as long as you don't pull like this texture over here, you're usually okay with this method. Because once it's cloned out, only the person who did the editing and, you know, the subject and people who absolutely know this area and may have memorized the pillar for whatever reason will be able to tell that anything's actually been done to it. And so we're just doing this to clean up and remove visual distraction. And that's all we're doing, removing a visual distraction. And I found out that it's easier to do this step first. I used to always do my facial retouching and stuff first, but for whatever reason, whether it's my brain and whatnot, doing the background first actually seems to help a bit more. Okay, so we have that cleaned up, and then we're going to tone this down. So we don't want to get rid of it, because if we get rid of it, then we have to clean up the whole stupid thing. But by toning them down, they're still there. They're just not so prominent. And they're not that big of a deal. So I'm wondering if I even want to do that. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Now the question is, do I do it to this side? Do I come in here and start filling in these areas to lighten them up? Just the super dark areas. Now obviously you can spend as much or as little time as you want doing this. That's all personal preference, how much you want to do, what the end use of the, like if this was going into a magazine, yeah, I would go in and clean all this up, unless it's for, you know, some type of grunge, something or other. All right, that's pretty good. Just cleans that up a bit. So we'll call, oh, we are not done with our background. I just remember I want to remove this bench. Let's go ahead and save. And actually we'll start down here. And because we are in a lighter area, we are going to adjust a more blurred area, I should say. We're gonna use a somewhat softer edged brush just to clean up this walkway. And then when I need to blend, use the the healing brush. Just go over edges to blend them together. Just like that. And then when I need to do hard cleanups, I use the clone stamp. And then the funny thing is some of the stuff may get cropped out. And so it's kind of like, how much work do I really want to do before I clone? Because of all the other work that we do to the image, I'd rather take a little bit of time to do this step than get rid of it later, than need it later and then have to go back and edit it. All right, let's see. So we want to remove this bench, so let's start here. We'll line that up to the grass line. And we'll do the same thing over here. To also help us disappear some of that fringe hair that's sticking out right there, which we're going to get rid of that with the spot healing brush tool later. Let's take our green grass and slowly... little tedious, but in the end it just removes visual distraction. And sometimes that's really all you need to do to an image. Like if an image is looking off or weird, sometimes it's just the visual distractions. And this is just one way of doing it. Now obviously if this image was sharper, we'd have to obviously be paying a little bit more attention, less loosey-goosey like we're doing here. But again, because the background is so bokeh, I know now I can come, oops, I can now come in here with a healing brush and go through a couple of circles. Blend as much of this together as we can. And yeah, we could do this in frequency separation. But this is not something that I would typically want to do in frequency separation. Do is get rid of this harsh as much as we can. Or green. Then we just need to blend it. Ooh, that is not what we wanted to do. Went a little crazy there. A little crazy. Okay. So let's lower that, and then we'll just come in here. Paint with the healing brush. And all I'm trying to do here is blend some of this together, make sure that there's no weird repeating grass patterns. Make the grass look a little bit more believable. Like we have a couple of dark spots here and here that I can now see from out here. So we'll go back to our clone stamp. We'll remove those. The concrete back there. Remove that darkness. Go back to our healing brush. Do a little bit more blending. Okay. Then what we're also going to do is remove a couple of these bright points up here. And again, we're just using our healing brush for this because we don't have to be as accurate. We still want to be careful that we don't have any hard lines. But all we're trying to do here is remove some of these bright patches to keep the eye from being distracted. All right, looking pretty good. So our background before, look how messy that is. Look how distracting it is. Now, your eyes kind of going all over the place. Yeah, your focal point may be on the subject, but it's still bouncing around all over the image. But if we get rid of all that stuff, we create a nice clean background, and now our subject is going to be our main focal point just by cleaning it up. So before and after, before and after, just cleaning it up, giving us a more simplistic image to work from. All right, so let's group. So we'll call this background. Background. Sometimes it is hard to type with this glove on, but that's okay. So now we're going to go to our main cleanup, which is going to be our skin and hair cleanup. So what we're going to do, I usually use the healing brush for this exclusively. And we're just going to come in here and just clean up the parts of her skin that need to be cleaned up. Whether it be because of blemishes. This part will probably be done in frequency separation. Yeah. So we come into her face. We remove a couple of these blemishes that are there. Basically, we're going to try and make her face look as good as it would on a good day. You can't always account for when people are gonna have pimples and stuff, so you know, rather than go, oh, I'll just leave that in there and make them hate their photos because they have a pimple. Pimples aren't permanent, they just come and go. Blotchiness on the skin comes and goes. Like the day that we shot this, it was a bit windy, and so there's some red heart marks on her face. You know, she's got a couple of these little bumps right there, which, you know, who knows what they're from. They're not usually there. So we just do you know, what we need to do and remove them. Now, if you're doing this for your photo like this for yourself or for some kind of composite work or something like that, you can do whatever you want to it. Go as far as you need to, do as little as you need to. A lot of it is personal preference. The only thing I will say, if there's some type of identifiable mark, such case in point, Cindy Crawford's mole, you don't want to remove that unless you specifically ask, because that is part of her identity. So birthmarks, that kind of thing, sometimes you want to make sure it's okay to remove before you do so, especially if you're shooting for something like a magazine or a portrait for that client. So let's see, let's tone down on these on her shoulder. I know she doesn't care. And again, to me, these aren't really definable marks. They're just kind of distractions at this point. What's funny is in real life, you barely see these. Your brain filters so much out that a camera does not. But we're just, you know, using our healing brush, going through, cleaning them up, nice quick cleanups. And the reason we're doing it in this step rather than frequency separation is so we're not having to clean these up on two different layers, the color and the texture layer. It just makes it easier if we handle both the color and the texture right away. These red marks will be taken care of in frequency separation when we blend her arm together, or blend the color together. And let's see if we can go and get rid of some of these hairs on her shoulder. And we'll go through with our spot healing brush here in a second to work on her hair a little bit more. Get rid of some of the cross. And this is also a practice photo, so I'm trying to just remove as much as I can, just to see if I can. You know, it's always good to practice these things, even if you don't use them all the time. And we are going to clean up some of these veins in her arm and her hand. Let's see, will it work here? If not, we'll do it in frequency separation, because then we can just manipulate the color. But women always show their age in their hands, and so you can make a woman look a little bit younger by cleaning up the hand area and either getting rid of or lightening those veins. Sometimes you don't want to just get rid of them, you want to just lighten them. So we are gonna take care here and see if removing them helps, or if we need to do this on a new layer and just tone them down. And because her hand is so far away from the camera, I think we're just gonna leave it like this, and we'll come in and we'll blend her skin together in frequency separation. And then you'll never know why she was tensing her arms so much while we were doing this. I could not tell you. Ah. Alright, so if you can see the hand, just by removing that, we help a little bit. And we are going to liquefy her hand to tighten it up a little bit. Ooh. And I'm debating whether I keep this muscle crease in there. I probably will. Alright, so we zoom out a little bit further and see if there's anything else that jumps out at us before we go into frequency. Music is kind of low key today, huh? Alright, so let's go ahead and go to our spot healing brush, which I really need to get better shortcuts so I don't have to keep clicking over there. Alright, and then all we're going to do is now come over these hairs and just let them start blending in with the background. Or removing and filling with background elements. Now, the good news is, if we have an issue like this here, we can just take our clone stamp and just kind of paint the hair back in, just like that. There we go. So back to our spot healing. Now this step does take a while. Excuse me, this is where you really want music playing or something where you can zone in. Because without it, it's a very tedious step. I mean, there's a lot of this cleanup process that is somewhat tedious. However, it's really super necessary because it just gives you a much cleaner image. Like you'll see once we remove a lot of these stragglers and some of these crosshairs. Now I know retouchers out there that will take an image like this and spend hours just fixing this hair. We're not going to do that. I don't need to do that. If I needed to worry about her hair that much, I would have done it while we were shooting. We would have had hairspray. We would have been spraying her down. But we weren't because it wasn't that important. It's only important now because I want to clean it up a little bit. So we are going to take just a few minutes to do that. And she'll appreciate it, not having all these hairs flying around everywhere. Let's see. Fill in a little bit there. Take off a little bit there. And again, it helps that the background is nondescript, so we can just kind of paint the background over the hairs if we need to. Going a little crazy. Little crazy. And then if we run into some issues here, we can always use our clone stamp or just run our spot healing over the edges and I'll kind of blend them together. Again, the background is fairly nondescript, so it doesn't matter. Also, you want to make sure that as you're selecting the hairs, your brush is usually about the size of the hair. Again, I'm using a pressure sensitive tablet, which is controlling the size of my brush, which is why you see that it's so small within the wider brush circle. If you do not have a Wacom tablet, you will need to manually adjust your brush size so that it only kind of matches the hairs. Because if you take too much, you can start seeing some artifacting and stuff sometimes. Because the bigger the spot healing brush is, the more information it's going to take from the surrounding areas. And it's not removing this for whatever. There we go. So remove a couple of these crosshairs. Let's see. A couple of those. Move that straggler right there. Now this area down here is a bit of a mess. We're just going to clean up a little bit. We don't want to be too stay in here too long again. Just wanting to clean up the image just a little bit. It's going to be very hard to do a full clean of this area. Not impossible. Nothing's impossible. It's just very hard because you have crosshairs running every which way. And so some of this stuff just takes a long time. We're only going to spend a couple more minutes in here, and then we'll move on to frequency separation. Boom, got rid of that. Also, feel free to ask any questions while I'm doing this. I have absolutely zero problem answering questions. I mean, that's why I started doing all this, to, you know, not only force me to kind of work a little bit, but to also help people out as they need it. So any kind of photography question, computer tech questions, anything like that, you know, feel free to just ask. If I know the answer, I'll give you the answer. If I don't know the answer, I'll look it up and let you know about it in the next stream. Alright, oops. Running into a bit of an issue there. See, that cleaned it up. So we're getting some of these longer flyaways out here. Let's see if this will clean it up. So we'll create a section to break it apart from the hole. Well, that did a fairly good job. That did a good job too. Something that you'll also find as you start removing hairs out here, you'll start wanting to clean up closer in. It's a bit of a weird cycle of retouching and clean up, and oh, I cleaned this, I cleaned this, I cleaned this. Oh, now I want to clean this. Oh, now I need to clean this. I mean, as you can see, it can be kind of never ending. But we are going to end it soon. But we are going to clean this up because this is just a mess. So I think what we're going to try and do, let's try it on a new layer just in case I mess it up. Just pull this in. And then we will see what we can do here. Oh, like that, just blending the hair in. Then we'll do it down here. And I'm using the clone stamp for this, so I'm doing direct replication. Alright, that's good enough. So if we look at the cleanup, you can just, it just kind of cleans up the hair. If we were closer, it cleans up the skin a bit. And then we'll call this cleanup. Alright, so now we're going to go into our frequency separation. What I like to do for this is in a new document. So I'll duplicate the current document. I flatten everything. And then I'll run my frequency separation. Now, I used to use an action, but I have this tool called the Retouching Academy panel. Oh, excuse me. And it gives you a couple of different options for frequency separation that I really like. So the first thing we're going to do is do a median separation. I'm going to move this up to an area of heavy texture like her face and make sure that the texture is going away but the color is remaining. And 7 is actually looking fairly good for this image. So, all right, come on, music. It's really wanting me to do low-key stuff today, huh? Let's see what else we have. Do 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 do. All right, let's reset it and see what we get. Oh, nope, did not like that. Shuffle, right? Maybe I need random. Oh, it was just playing all low-key stuff, and it's early in the morning. That's what I don't need. All right, so let's open this up, and then we are going to do a solid color black layer, and we're going to change it to color. And what this does is it gives us a true representation of black and white to help us edit a little bit. I am then going to turn off the texture layer. I will duplicate my color layer, and let's try something. I've been wanting to try something. If I just run a dust and scratches, noise, let's see if we can get the skin to smooth out. I don't know if I like that. I was just trying to see if it would smooth it out a bit more, but it's not having the desired effect I wanted. So now let's try where is it? Is it median? We may just need to blur. Yeah. Alright, so let's just try a blur. Smart blur? Surface blur. Let's try a surface blur. I don't remember if this does anything. Yeah. So it should preserve the edges, but it should start blurring. Okay, that's still not doing it. All right, we'll just go back to the old trusty Gaussian blur. See, sometimes you have to play around. Oh, no. Okay. So what I'm looking for is all of this to kind of blend together. Because then we're just going to paint it in. I just want to see if this step might be faster than using the mixer brush. I don't think it's going to be. I have a bad feeling I'm going to have to use the mixer brush as well to get the right blend, but we'll see. All right, so I then turn that off. And then using white at about 10% flow. Now let's go down to a 3% flow. And we're just going to reveal that layer and see if the blur on this layer works a little bit better, or faster I should say, than having to use the mixer brush, or if it gets rid of too much. Again, just something we can play with. There's no right or wrong, and because we're targeting it, we can tell it exactly what to do. Now there are some areas I'm seeing that we may still need to use the mixer brush, and that's okay. Again, I don't think any one technique will work perfectly, but you can use several smaller techniques to get the results that you want. So we'll see how this end result looks. And maybe this result doesn't work great for the face, but it works super good for the body. Who knows? We'll find out here in just a second. I really need to get a better desk. It's just a little too light. Okay. Now, it does look flat right now, but I do have my texture layer that's turned off right now. So try not to think of it as being super bad right now. Because yeah, she has absolutely zero detail in her skin because I removed it temporarily. So now we'll just take this. I can be a little bit more generous on the arms, so let's go about 5% with this blur layer. And then we'll do it on her back. Down her arm. What this should also do is blend those red, that red in her arm. So this is one of the big techniques I use to get rid of like the red stippling and stuff you'll see on people's hands, arms, legs, because it just blends it all together. The skin color overtakes the red. Because usually those red marks are just from the sun. Everyone has it. I don't think I've seen a single person that doesn't eventually get those red marks on them, depending on what's going on. And it's just skin discoloration. It's nothing major. A lot of the time, honestly, your brain kind of filters it out a little bit. You don't notice it as much when you're with people in real life. But obviously in photographs, your camera sensor doesn't have the same sensors as your brain does. Your brain actually filters a lot out. Just think, your nose protrudes from your face, but you don't see your nose at all half the time. Think about that while you're trying to go to sleep. Why your brain doesn't see your nose. Alright, so down here is going to have to be frequency separated. That didn't blend as well as I'd like it to. But if we back out, let's turn off our black and white layer. So that actually did not do a bad job. Let's turn our texture on. Yeah, I'm digging that. Before, after, before, after. Just cleaned it up. Just cleaned it up. That's all that step was for. And now we will do another step with our mixer brush just to get into the extra areas. If you know what, maybe we won't. Maybe I'll just leave it. We will use the mixer brush to clean that area up. And we'll just take it and just kind of blend that. Okay. Yeah. And then the hair right here we'll fix. Oh. Don't do it on the mask. You want to do it on the actual layer. And then make sure the mask is affecting that area. So go to the normal brush, paint it white. Okay. Let's finish cleaning this area up right here. Alright. Clean that up. Okay. So, last step, I like to tone down the texture a little bit on the face, just a hair. Nothing too drastic, so we'll use the mixer brush for this. Making sure we're selected on our texture layer. And then we're just gonna come in here and very, very carefully just blend it together. So basically what we're doing is we're kind of blending the textures together, and don't be afraid if you go too far. We're gonna lower the opacity of this layer to bring some of it back. But I found sometimes through this process, I can get overly sharp skin in areas I don't want, and this just allows me to tone that down. And yeah, I'm already reserved to the fact that I'm going overboard with it, and then I'm just gonna really pull down the opacity of this layer, and that will bring that texture back. You could also use this method to potentially remove texture from certain areas, and then use digital texture and paint texture back in. Like if someone has really big, deep pores, you can kind of use this method to fill those in and clean them up. All right, so let's also do it on our forehead. Clean up. Okay. Oh, let's see something. I don't know if I put enough blur there. Let's see. Yeah, I did. Okay. So now we'll take this texture layer, and now all of her texture is gone, which is not good. And then we can just turn it down. About right there, I think is good. So before, see, it's just really sharp. And let's actually lower this a little bit more. We're just toning it down ever so slightly, so it's not distracting to the overall image. It's there, but it's not a distraction. So we'll take our median. That's right, that doesn't work anymore for whatever reason. We're gonna copy that group and we'll paste it. Then we'll close down that duplicate image, because we were working on a duplicate image. What that does is it somewhat helps speed up the process of doing it, especially when you have a ton of layers up underneath it. All right. So now let's do our general dodge and burning. So to do this, I just create a curves adjustment and pull it way up. Double click, remove it from the shadows. And then I take another curves adjustment. That's the levels. I take another curves adjustment, pull it way down. And then remove it from the highlights. Now on this one, I also remove it from the darks a bit, because I don't want it to get too dark. Okay, so starting with the highlight one, and maybe we do adjust it so it's not hitting the darkest. There we go. A little bit more contrast to the image. What we'll do is we'll pull this back to 0 and just slowly bring it up till it gets to a good level, about right there maybe. And then we'll do the same thing with the darks. And all this is honestly for is contrast. That whole step right there is for contrast. What is this? Gradients. This needs to be up with my color. Where do I want to put my gradient? Color themes, gradients. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so what that does is this. Excuse me. All right. And then we'll group those together. And then we'll just slowly bring them up to about where we want. About right there is good. All right, so now we don't have to do anything to her eyes. However, we are going to enhance her makeup a little bit. And we will do that with just some more localized dodge and burn. So until I figure out this other tool. So what I'm going to do is dodge and burn curves, which is basically what we just did. It's just an automated action. I turn that off. And then I'm going to do my solid color, black, set to color. And I'm going to do a whole tutorial video on why I do the black solid color as opposed to a black and white layer or using their existing visual reference. Although their existing visual reference is good, I just haven't worked with it enough. And I worked with the solid color layer a lot more. Okay. So let's start. No, let's start with the burn. We'll go down to about 2%. And then we're just going to paint white to reveal. And we're just following the natural shadows that are kind of already there in the makeup. Help darken it. What we're also going to do is darken down, because this is the eyelash strip. And if I had seen that earlier, I would have blended that in. But in this case, we'll just tone it down. We may blend this edge here. Yeah, we're gonna have to do a more extravagant. Yeah, that's the word. All right, so then we'll come down here to the lips, darken the dark part of the lips, a little bit of more darkness underneath it to create a little bit of a separation of the lips from the chin. Then we'll hit the top lip, just help darken the makeup. And then we'll hit the inside just like that. I don't think too much else needs to be dodged. Maybe we'll dodge down. I mean burn, not dodge, burn. Burn down the cheek area here a bit. Yeah. And actually we can do a little bit of burning into the hair. Yeah. And again, I'm using a Wacom tablet, so I'm able to directly affect certain areas. So if you don't have a Wacom, you're gonna have to be adjusting your brush size a lot. And I can tell you right now, if you want to do this for any extended period of time, you don't want to have to be consistently hitting brush larger, brush smaller, brush larger, brush smaller. Okay, so if you can, you don't even need to get a Wacom. There's a company Huion or something like that also makes graphic tablets. You also don't need the super expensive Wacom tablets. You just need one that has pressure sensitivity. If you want to get one with all the bells and whistles, do that after you learn it, because it will take you a solid 2 weeks to a month to learn how to use this stupid thing. And trust me on that. It's not super intuitive, because especially when you're used to working on a mouse, you really don't think about how this actually works. So now I'm burning her eyebrows a little bit to darken them. And we're gonna go back to dodge. And we're just going to highlight a little bit on her shoulder. Get that to stand out. Put a little bit of a light down her arm. Okay. A little bit of a dodge on the nose. Underneath the eye to accentuate that bone structure. And then just a smidge on the forehead. Alright. And we may not even need that, but... So, this is our dodge. I mean, our burn. Okay. And then this is our dodge. And that's a little too... Oh, no, that's a little too harsh there. So let's take our burn tool. No, let's take our dodge tool. And we're just going to smooth that out a little bit. I'd rather put more light on her face than take light away from her face in this instance, because it's a brighter image. All right, so we turn that off. And then we may have to do that. Okay. So the full dodge and burn is just like that. We're just popping, and the burn on her cheek is way too strong. So what we can do, because we did it on a layer mask, we can paint black just over that part to tone it down. Okay. So now we have our before and our after. Just adding a bit of punch. Okay. And then we'll take that whole layer, knock it down to about 75%. And then we'll save that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull out our previous image for color toning. We're also going to save this in a new document before we start the color toning. So we can work on a clean flat layer. And you know what we are going to do? We're going to liquefy before we do that. Let's liquefy before we do color toning. Now in another... now we'll leave that. Alright, so let's just liquefy. Normally I liquefy at the very, very end, but we're going to mix it up a bit. We'll keep this as part of our retouching step so that in the color setup, all we're doing is color. We're not touching liquefy or any other elements unless we absolutely have to. But we're going to try and avoid that. Man, I'm going to have to put more music on here. I don't know what's going on with it. You know what? Let's just go random. I have a feeling it's the shuffle. Like it's playing stuff it hasn't played before. So we'll see. Okay. Filter, liquefy. So what we're gonna do here in liquefy is give her bigger hair, modify the hair a little bit. Big hair always looks better. Now what we need to do is, because we have some of these straight lines in the image, is be very careful how we do this, so that we don't have distorted lines. Distorted lines are the biggest way for someone to tell that an image has been liquefied. And we know this from experience, because not everyone knows how to do this properly. So we'll give her a little bit more. Pull this into her head, shrink her forehead just a little bit. Pull some of that hair down. We are going to zoom in a little bit and kind of fix this area up here. We are going to shrink our brush. And we're just going to pull up to smooth that out. And then we'll push this edge down a little bit. And we're going to pull this down just a smidge. Good. And then just increase her bust size just ever so slightly. Okay. Come in here. We're going to push and oops. Shrink her hand a little bit, as well as her arm, because her arm only looks bigger because it's facing the camera. That's why it's the largest element. So we can just tuck that in a little bit. And I have no qualms about using Liquify like this. I know some people don't like to use it. To me, I'm just enhancing stuff that you would maybe, how you would see her in real life. Because again, the lens shows things a lot differently. So, just some very subtle changes. Nothing too erogenous. We are going to go back and we're going to fix her bust just a little bit. Alright, so that's our liquify step. So we will save that, and now we'll go on to color. And to do that, we're going to open up the previous image that I did so we can pull the exact same color toning so we can make sure that the colors match up. Alright. We may actually get this done quicker than some of the other ones, which is good because I have some work I have to do today. Again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. I have no problem sharing my wealth of knowledge. Oh. Alright, so layer, flatten image, save as. And what we are going to also do is find, so this is 4208. Color. Why is there 3 files in there for 4208? Let's find out. Thought only 2 would be in there. So 4208 edit is that. Edit 1 is the one we were just working on. Okay. So we'll get rid of that one and edit 2. Sorry, I'm doing that off screen, I know. Alright, so now we're in color. So what we are going to do is open up the color layer. I just opened up the same one. Let's open up this color. Okay. So what we're going to do, I think that's just a sharpening. Yeah. Is we're going to pull all these color layers that we need to from this image into this image. Before we do any of that, let's go ahead and crop. I'm thinking I'm wanting to follow the rule of thirds here. Let's cut about her waist. Do I want her more centered? Cropping is always the hardest part. Yeah. That looks good right there. All right, so crop done. And then we'll flatten. Okay. So let's start with this group 5. Copy. Paste. So then what we'll do is we'll go through each of these elements and see what they do to this image and see if we need to take them away or... So the curves there is good to brighten it up. And then there is a mask on here, so we are going to fill it with white. Just to see what it does to the whole image. I think I removed it from the jacket in the previous image because the jacket is very prominent. It's not as prominent in this image, so we'll see. Yeah, we'll go ahead and take it off her jacket. So black brush, 20% flow, and we're just going to paint it off the jacket. If I did it in the previous image, I should probably do it here too. And it's probably just removing some of the discoloration that's happening to the jacket to preserve the blueness of it, and to create probably somewhat of a color contrast from her. Yeah, it didn't look like it was a huge shift, so we don't have to be 100% precise in this instance. But again, that's also personal preference. So if we do our before and after, yeah, okay. And then this group is, it looks like it's my color lookup group. So let's fill that, oopsie, fill that with white. Or after. That's pretty good. All right, and then the gradient fill to mask the face, very, very good. We'll move, let's set this to normal real quick so I can kind of see where that is. So I can move it where it needs to be to hit her face. I don't think it needs to be that large. Yeah, let's try 100. Yeah. Put that back to soft light. Then we have our contrast layer. So this gradient layer kind of removes contrast, which is really not a good thing. We don't want to remove contrast from the face. However, I also want to spotlight it. So what this layer is doing is it's pulling your focus directly into the eye by darkening everything else in the image. It's a little too strong in this particular image. So what we're going to do with this brightness contrast layer, fill it with black, and then using a white brush, we're just going to paint it, the contrast, back onto her face. So any amount that's a little too much. So we'll back it down a bit. Okay. And then this selective color layer, which is just some color toning. That's pulling some of the red out of the image. Very subtle, but very necessary. Okay. This looks like, let's turn it on. Fill it with white. This looks like it may have something to do with our background. Yeah. So what we're going to do in this instance, in here we used a targeted mask. It looks like, or we should have. Oh, I think I just turned it off. I didn't use it at all here. Well, let's see if we like it here. So the first thing that we're going to do is remove our subject from this. So we're just going to merge everything into a snapshot. We have to make sure we're on a layer that's active. And we're going to do select subject. Okay, we're then going to use that and turn this layer back on and remove that from it. So I just used select subject to create a mask. That's all I did. Okay. That's so weird that's doing that. Oh. Okay. So what we're going to do now is also, I don't want it affecting anything on this plane right here. So I'm just going to use a straight edged selection tool. About a 1 pixel feather right now. Doesn't have to be exact. And then we're going to fill that with black also. So that is now only affecting the background. And I don't hate that. And then we're just going to take that whole group, pull it all the way down, and then just slowly bring it up. Alright, so about right there looks good to me. So the first level of our color is this. So that's the original after editing. And this is the after. After the first level of color adjustments. Okay? So we'll go ahead and save that. Alright, so the next step was the sky. And we'll see if we need that. Let's see. You know what? Don't hate it. We'll clean up the mask a little bit. Paint some black to pull it a little bit off the trees and the buildings, but we will leave that. Yeah. All right. So we have our sky. And then this should be a secret. No, this is not the secret layer just yet. Okay. I was hoping. Copy. Paste. So what I think this is doing is adding something back into skin tones. So if I look at this mask, I'm probably using my red channel. So we'll turn this group off real quick. Go to our channels. I'm going to go to my red mask. Control, click on it. Command, click on the Mac. And then I'm going to paste black and then invert it. That did not work. Invert it. There we go. You have to deselect the selection before you invert. So now I have this selection. And then what I want to do, using my level adjustment on the mask, I don't want this to affect the shadow area, so I'm going to pull that all the way in and darken down everything but the highlights. Or more apt, the skin area. So what this should be doing at about, let's knock this up to 100% so you can actually see what it's doing. It's probably just adding a little bit of color back into the skin tones that we may have lost. It's also unifying the skin tone a little bit. And so we'll put it back to 35%. It's very subtle, but subtlety is key. So we'll save that. And then the next step was a black and white contrast layer. Which, yeah, we'll leave that. Again, that's just using black and white layers set to soft light. So at 100%, it does this to the image. And what you can do is you can come in here and adjust all these values to control how light or how dark a certain area is. And it's doing the lightening or darkening based on the color of the image rather than the light or brightness of an image. So like if you wanted the greens to be darker, you could come here to this green slider and darken them down. And so on and so forth. And then you set it to soft light and knock it down to about 10-20%-ish. I'm in that range. And it just gives you a little bit, adds just a little more contrast to the image. Okay. And then this next group is my special group. So there's this photographer I follow, and he has this wacky preset he uses for certain things, and it adds quite a bit of a cool look to the image. So we're going to go ahead and run that using Camera Raw, because it is a Camera Raw preset, and it is called Carnival. And we'll wait for it to apply, which for whatever reason it takes forever to apply these things. All right, so it does some weird wacky stuff to the image. So we're going to hit OK. And then what we're going to do, which channel did he use? I think he uses the green channel for this. Yeah. So the channel with the most contrast, right? So we're going to create 2 duplicates of it. We have to turn them off. And then we'll go into our green channel. Okay. We're going to copy our green channel. Your green channel usually has the most contrast. And then we're going to put a mask there. Okay. We're going to duplicate said mask up there and invert it. So now one of these images is affecting our highlights and one is affecting the shadows. Okay. So what we do is we turn the bottom one on and we slowly bring it up to see how we want it to affect the image. And I'm thinking about right there is good. And then we turn the top one on and do the same thing. And all this is kind of doing is bringing some details back in with a very interesting look. That's a little too, so we'll tone it down. So before and after, you can just see it's adding some detail back in. It's lightening certain areas. So if something had been getting a little bit too dark, it's kind of bringing it back up now, which is really good. All right, now to make, and the only reason I'm using this as a guideline is because I need to make sure that they match, so that they look like they were shot in a series of images. Okay. So then the last thing I think we need to do, let's turn you off. If I can see what I'm doing, that's a bit of brightness. That's a bit of darkness. I don't think this is doing, it's just a hair. So let's go ahead and copy all these over. Okay. And we're done there. So what we're going to do here is just see what all these different layers are doing. Okay, let's turn off these top 2. This is just cutting a little bit of the saturation out, not a whole lot, just a tad. This is going to be darkening the image, but we only wanted to darken the background. And if I remember correctly, we already have kind of a selection here. So we're going to take this selection and copy it onto that. So she's not affected, but the background is. Just like that. And then this is going to be a brightening. Okay. But we only wanted to affect probably her face. So we're going to do 2 things. Down here in the curves, we're going to do our reds adjustment again, because I only wanted to affect her skin tones. Load that as a selection. We'll fill it with black for now, which is now affecting the opposite of what we want. And then we're going to invert that so it affects what we want. Okay. So we're going to pull this effect out of the shadows. And I only wanted to affect certain areas. So it's going to affect these areas more than these areas. Okay. That's good. So now, before and after, right? And actually, I may just leave that affecting everything. Normally, I'd have it just affect her face, but I don't mind it hitting her shoulder like that a little bit. Okay. So now we'll do some final cleanup. And this is going to be where we fix. And we'll see if I need to do this in a separate document or not. The color layers do tend to slow the computer down, so we'll see if we need to meld over. And just how this is running, yeah, I think we're gonna need to. Alright, let's delete that. Save what we have, just to be on the safe side, just so something doesn't get deleted. And the only thing that's happened is it's having to take samples from all this stuff and calculate before it can start painting. And if you do it from a flattened layer, it works better, excuse me. So what we're going to do, image duplicate, and then we're going to flatten everything. So then when we do this final cleanup, and one thing we are going to do, I noticed some weird stuff going on up here. We're just going to try and blend. So see how it's working a lot faster now? And that's because it's only having to read information from one flattened layer. It's not having to calculate all the different adjustment layers that are on underneath it. But I still have all those adjustment layers if I need to go back and create and manipulate anything. Alright, so now let's go in here. Let's just remove this bright, super bright point. Alright, so now let's come in here. I actually may need to use my clone stamp for this. And so all I'm doing is I'm removing the white part of the fake eyelashes. Obviously I did not realize they showed up. It's probably one of the few things I don't pay attention to, and I need to learn to start. That's also what's good. If you edit your own images, you can kind of learn the things that you need to pay attention to while you're on a shoot. Because you go, oh, I keep having to edit hair. Well, pay attention to hair on the shoot, and you won't have to edit as much. Now, granted, there are situations where, you know, it doesn't matter how much attention you pay to something, that you may still have to do editing to it. I mean, things happen. Windy days happen if you're shooting outside. So, you know, sometimes nothing you can do about it. But, you know, you can do things to minimize. And we're going to make this a little bit harder as we get over here to this edge, because we are kind of now creating, as we blend this in, fake lashes over there, which is fine. And we'll just slowly, oops, not do that. Blend this a bit. Now I do have eyelash brushes. I have to get better at using them. I kind of suck with them. Otherwise I would be using them right now for this. And this is a step that you don't have to do. Again, because I'm doing a lot of practicing and stuff, I want to do this step just to see how it comes out. But I know plenty of photographers who would leave the stem of the fake lashes there. They're like, eh. I'm just not one of them. I don't see a reason to leave it in. So. Alright, and just so you can see how that looks before, after. It just cleans it up. There's no reason not to do it. That did not take me long at all to do. And then what I'll do is I'll copy both of these layers and paste them over here. That did not work the way I wanted it to. Why not? Is it? Okay, so we'll just do this. Shift drag over. There we go. Boom. So now we have final cleanup. We'll group them together, call them final cleanup. And then we'll go in, and I don't know if we need to sharpen it, but we're going to, and see how it looks. So we'll merge everything down or into a snapshot, and we're going to use Nik Sharpener Pro, and then we're going to selectively sharpen just the eyebrows, the lips, and the eyes. So the first thing we need to do is see how much it's sharpening. That's plenty. Okay. So then we just wait for the computer to respond, and we black mask it. Zoom in a little bit just so we can kind of see what we're doing. Paint white. 20% flow is fine. Just hit a couple of times. Hit the eyebrows. Hit the lips. Sometimes I'll hit the hair. I don't want to call too much attention, so we'll just do it in this part of the hair right there. And I don't know if we want to bring the texture out in the shirt. The shirt's not that important in this image. This is good if you have like a leather jacket or something. It can really bring that out a bit. So if we zoom in, before, after, it's just adding a touch of sharpness to the various areas. And that's it. We are done. So let's pull, after this is done saving, we'll pull the original straight from Capture One image, the retouched image, and then the final color image over. This is 4208. And I just realized my camera was blocking my layers panel this whole time. Well, hopefully you didn't miss too much because the layers I was working on was always on top. I do apologize for that. I wasn't paying attention. All right. So let's open up our original edit. Okay. So this was after our liquefy. So we'll create a snapshot of that. Copy. Paste. It's gonna shift it. What if I do Control Shift Paste? No, that doesn't work either. All right, so well, that actually may be accurate. Yeah, that is accurate. I'll have to line them up in a second, but then we'll just duplicate the background real quick and bring that over also. What? Oh. Click you. Yeah. So what we should have now let's see, about 50%. See if we can't line this up. Close as we can. All right. 100%. So we started with this straight from Capture One. This is the original image from Capture One. This is the retouched image. So Capture One, this is our retouch. And then this is with the color adjustments. And that's where we're at. All right, so we have that set done. Let me save this out and I'll open up all three and we can see what the set actually looks like. Ugh. And kind of see if there's anything else we kind of need to do to them. I don't think so. I think I matched them up pretty well. So, save. Oh, we can't just save. We have to flatten first. Then we have to convert to sRGB, otherwise colors will go all wonky on us on the web, and 8-bit. So we'll go ahead and save that as a JPEG. Do the JPEG folder. Save. Let me go ahead and create my thumbnail image for use on social media and whatnot. Export. Edit. Thumb. All right. So we'll go ahead and close that. And I guess we can just pull them up in Photoshop. It's not gonna hurt anything. So color, edit, edit. Yeah, move. Maybe this wasn't the best way of doing it. Can I do... Let's load these up in Capture One. So I should be able to load that folder. So if I create a new album, right? And then JPEGs. Create, import, folder, edit, JPEG, select folder, import. Turn off my target ratings and crap like that. And then if we do a add zoom filter, JPEG. So edit, edit, edit. Throw it here into the JPEGs, but that's our compilation. Things are slightly different on here, but I think they still work fairly well together. The shadows are a little bit more red on this image, but I think I like the look and style of these two better. It still kind of works, so I don't hate it. A little bit of a cop out, but I still think it works. You're also seeing a lot more sky in this one, I think, which could have an effect on this, and the background's a bit darker. So if I were to change the darkness on this image, I think it would match those. So I may have to end up going in and doing that another day. But all right, I'm fairly happy with how these came out, especially since I haven't done any editing in forever. So yeah, we're going to end it here for today. I do have some other work I have to go get done. And then I will see you all Wednesday evening. You all have a wonderful day. And yeah, if you like this, follow me on Twitter. You can find the link in the panels and stuff below. That way you know when I'm going live. You can also follow me on all my other social media accounts. So with that, I will see you all later.